Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Students, in the previous session we discussed about the two types of plants which possess or which show the heterotrophic mode of nutrition, and they were parasitic plants and saprophytic plants. So in today's session we will continue this heterotrophic mode of nutrition, in which we will study about the other two types of plants, that is insectivorous plants, and the last one will be the symbiotic plants. So let us try to recall the two types of plants which shows the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Parasitic plants are those plants which absorb food from another growing green plant called the host, and parasitic plants harm the host and benefits itself. And saprophytic plants are the plants which are usually whitish but can have brightly colored flowers, and these saprophytic plants have no green leaves, and they often even do not have leaves at all. So they depend upon the rotting material. That is, they depend upon the dead and decaying organic matter from which they get their nutrition. Let us now study about the third type of plant, that is the insectivorous plant. So what are insectivorous plants, students? Insectivorous plants are the plants that derive some or most of their nutrients by trapping and consuming animals, mainly insects. These are the plants which are usually green in color, so we can say that they can make their own food. However, the soil in which these insectivorous plants grow is sometimes deficient in certain nutrients. And which type of nutrients? Especially it is deficient in one type of nutrient called as nitrogen. And these plants need to obtain these nutrients, especially the nitrogen, from outside sources. And that is why we say that insectivorous plants get or derive their nutrients by trapping and consuming animals, mainly insects. So they are said to be partly autotrophic and partly heterotrophic. These autotrophs, why they are termed as autotrophs, why they are called as autotrophs? Always remember that insectivorous plants are autotrophs because they are green in color, so they can make their own food. But these autotrophs supplement their nutritional requirements by trapping and digesting the insects and other small animals. The trapped insects are killed, and then their proteins are digested by the enzymes which are secreted by the upper part of the leaf of these insectivorous plants. They can live without insects, but their growth is stimulated when they digest the insects. And that is why for their growth, they possess or they show heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So basically they are called autotrophs because they are green in color, but their type of nutrition, that is digesting the insects and consuming and trapping the animals, other small animals, it is a type of heterotrophic nutrition. So we can say that the leaves of these plants are actually modified in several ways by trapping the insects, and thus we can conclude or we can say that they are autotrophic but shows heterotrophic nutrition as well, in order to supplement the deficiency of a particular mineral in the soil. Especially which type of mineral? Yes, nitrogen. So usually they feed on insects. They are generally found in nitrogen deficient habitats, and hence to compensate the loss they use insects as a source of nitrogen. Now you must be thinking that how they must be getting the nitrogen. Yes, they trap the insects, they kill the insects, and because of this they get the proteins. The insectivorous plants get the proteins, and that is why insects act as a source of nitrogen for such insectivorous plants. There are some examples which we are going to discuss. Some of the common examples of the insectivorous plants are pitcher plant, Drosera, also called as sundew plant. Then Bladderwort, Venus flytrap, Utricularia and Dionea. So we are going to study about some of these plants in detail. Not all of them, but some of them. So let us start with our first example of the insectivorous plant. So the first example is the pitcher plant. Pitcher plant is also called as, or it is also called by other name known as Nepenthes. Okay, so pitcher plant is also called as Nepenthes. And basically, pitcher plant or Nepenthes is found in northeastern India and also in many regions of North America. These plants grow well in wet soils, and the leaves of this plant are modified in the form of pitchers. Can you see this pitcher? Like a jug. So the pitcher has nectar which produces glands, and the shiny surface of the pitcher and nectar, the shiny surface of the pitcher and nectar, what it acts like? It actually secrete, or we can say that the shiny surface of this pitcher and the nectar are secreted by nectar glands which attract the insects. And insects, once get attracted and once trapped, cannot escape due to the presence of numerous downward pointing hairs in the picture. Can you see this? And because of this, the insects get trapped in this pitcher plant here. And the digestive glands are present at the base of this pitcher plant. And the insects are then digested by the enzymes, which are mainly in the form of proteins. And then they are absorbed by the inner surface of the leaves of the pitcher plant. So basically we can say that the leaf of the pitcher plant here, it is modified to form a tubular pitcher-like structure, as you can see here in this image. And the inside of the pitcher plant is lined with downward pointing hairs, because of which the hairs do not allow any insect to climb back up and escape. And that is why the fluid at the bottom of the pitcher contains the digestive juices that will finally digest the insect. And the pitcher plant, which is an insectivorous plant, will get the nutrition. So can you see in the image that it is green in color, and that is why we can say that pitcher plant is an autotrophic plant. It is an autotroph, but it possesses heterotrophic mode of nutrition because it digests the insects. So this is about the pitcher plant. Now let us move on to other example of insectivorous plant, Venus flytrap. Students, the trap of the Venus flytrap is also a highly modified leaf. Can you see here in this picture? This is Venus flytrap, this one. And this is the insect which gets trapped in Venus flytrap, and then Venus flytrap digests this insect and gets the nutrition. So what can we say? That Venus flytrap is also a type of insectivorous plant. Let us see one more clear image of Venus flytrap. The Venus flytrap. This is a more clear and more closer image, and here you can see that we have pointed something. I've pointed something for you, and what it is called as? What are all these? These are called hinges, right? These are the hinges, means the small structures, small hair-like structures of Venus flytrap. So the hinges also participate in this type of mode of nutrition. This is also one such picture of Venus flytrap. On the inner surface, which is the reddish one, the reddish in color, they are present here to attract the insects. Actually, there are short and stiff hairs on the inner surface. Can you see here? Which are called as hinges. So when anything touches these hairs, the two lobes, one is this and second one is this. So these two lobes of the leaves snap shut in less than a second and it traps the insect. And finally, it digests the insects. And Venus flytrap gets its nutrition. It will get its nutrition from this insect. So this was about the Venus flytrap. Now let us move on to other example of insectivorous plant. Drosera, also called as sundew. The leaves of sundew have tentacles with drops of a sticky substance called as mucilage. Mucilage, which is present at the end. So this is a very important term for you to remember, that the leaves of the sundew, can you see here in this image? The leaves of the sundew have tentacles. Can you see here? These are the tentacles. It's 1, 2. Let me show you with the other color so you can better know it. These are the tentacles. And because of these tentacles, in which the sticky substance called mucilage is present at the end of these tentacles, the leaves of sundew are able to trap the insects. So what will happen actually? The insects get stuck in this substance and becomes entangled. Means what will happen? The insects will get stuck in this mucilage-like, sticky-like substance, and when it actually gets stuck with this mucilage, means it cannot escape out. And that is why this helpless insect gets digested finally by Drosera, that is sundew. So this was about our third example. Let us move on to other example. The other example is the bladderwort. The slender leaves of bladderworts bear a large number of very small pear-shaped bladders. Can you see here in this image? It looks like a pear-shaped insectivorous plant known as bladderwort. So it has bladders which are pear-shaped, and that is why they are termed as bladderworts. It opens a trap door. Here you can see this acts like a door. This opens a trap door and the prey is sucked in within 1,000th of a second. So you can just imagine that how quickly it traps the insect and it sucks in. So this is also a type of bladderwort. This is also a type of an insectivorous plant which possesses the heterotrophic mode of nutrition, but it is considered to be an autotroph. Because of why it is considered as autotroph? Because it manufactures the food on its own, or we can say that they are green in color, but it possesses heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So students, you will be very amazed to know that among the carnivorous plants, the biggest and the most amazing are the vines, which are called or which are known as the tropical pitcher plants. So amongst these bladderwort or Venus flytrap or sundew or Drosera, the pitcher plants are the most amazing ones and the biggest ones. They have been known to capture and eat not only insects but also frogs and rarely even rodents. They are mainly found in Southeast Asia, and the majority of them are found in the island of Borneo, and they are also found in the regions of North America, as we discussed. All the examples which we saw, that is of the insectivorous plants, have a common plant part that has been modified to trap the insects, and that is why they are considered to be the insectivorous plants. So always remember one such common significance of this plant. Now, let us move on to another category of plants, symbiotic plants, which also show heterotrophic mode of nutrition. So what are these type of plants? The plants which live in association with other species and share their food resources are actually the plants called as symbiotic plants. Both the types mutually gain from each other. The types means the plants which are going to get the nutrition and the plants which are actually giving the nutrition or which are actually providing the nutrient to that plant. Both get mutually benefited from each other, and that is why such plants are called as symbiotic plants, and this type of relationship in between the plants is termed as symbiosis. Why we have termed symbiosis? Because they get mutually benefited from each other. So most of the interactions between these species involve the food, like competing for the same food supply or eating or avoiding being eaten. That means avoiding the predation. So these interactions are going on in between the plants of different type of species, and that is why these certain plants are termed as symbiotic plants. There are many such cases, however, where two species live in a close association for long periods. We can say that they are very, very closely associated. They are in the close association, and that too for a long period of time, and that is why such associations are called symbiotic. So why it is termed as symbiotic means? Why? Because this term means living together. They live together, and in symbiosis, at least one member of the pair of the plants benefits from the relationship. The fungus in turn provides shelter to the algae. So what will happen? That fungus is getting nutrient from the algae, and in turn fungus is providing shelter to the algae. So algae is also getting benefited and fungus is also getting benefited. So what will happen finally? They can grow in harsh conditions also, like rock surfaces where it would otherwise not survive. Algae is also benefited so that it can grow in such conditions. So here we can say that lichen is a very good example of symbiotic relationship, which exhibits symbiotic type of relationship in which the green algae will get benefited and even fungus will get benefited. And this type of association between a fungus and green algae are termed as lichens. So this is about lichens. So you must be thinking that how did symbiosis took place, how it evolved. It seems very plausible that what begins as a parasitic relationship might over the course of the time evolves into mutualistic one. Means they will benefit each other, as the two organisms evolve to minimize the damage to the host. What we studied in parasitic plants, in parasitic type of plants, the parasites harms the host plant. But here, it does not harms the host plant, or we can say that it minimizes the damage to the host plant. And there is some evidence also. And in 1966, K.W. Jeon, a scientist, discovered a culture of amoebas that had become infected with the bacteria. And this infection showed their rate of growth and made them more fragile, means more weak. But 5 years later, the amoebas still were infected, but now no ill effects could be seen. So this is one type of interesting question, that the amoebas had become dependent on the bacteria. And evidently, after 5 years, we can say that something, that is the nuclei which is present in the amoeba, had become independent, not independent, but dependent on the bacterial function. So this dependence on each other evolved the relationship of symbiosis, right? But it doesn't always work like that. There are some other examples where a mutualistic relationship seems to have evolved into a parasitic one. And there are some parasitic fungi that seem to be evolved from ancestors living in a mutualistic partnership, that is of a lichen, right? So all the organisms are not one and the same. Some are benefited, but some are not benefited. So this is about a lichen. The symbiotic relationship of fungi with either algae or any other bacteria produces a body called as a lichen. You can see here in this image. So distinctly different from either of its symbionts, that it is treated as a separate organism. So lichen is actually treated as a separate organism. And you will be amazed to know that the cells of its photosynthetic partner, like a bacteria known as the cyanobacteria, which is blue-green in color, so it is termed as photosynthetic partner, are dispersed among them. While the algal or the cyanobacterial member can live independently, even the fungus cannot, or we can say that the fungus is a parasite on the photosynthesizer in the lichen. The fungus, however, provides a home or a shelter for the photosynthetic cells, as well as absorbing water and nutrients from these bacteria and algae. But this actually makes the symbiosis mutualistic as much as parasitic in view of some scientists. So lichen is very good example of the symbiotic plants, which actually exhibits mutualism, which is a type of symbiosis. Now let us move on to other example. Other example here is peas containing bacteria, that is rhizobium. The roots of certain plants such as peas contain bacteria called rhizobium. Can you see here in this picture? This is a peas plant, and these peas contains bacteria called as rhizobium. Why does it contain bacteria rhizobium? Or what is actually meaning of the bacteria which is present here? Rhizobium converts atmospheric nitrogen into plant usable forms, for example ammonia, and that is why the roots of these plants, that is peas, will get the nutrient from the rhizobium, and that is why we can say that these are the symbiotic plants, because it will provide nutrient to the plant. Rhizobium provides the nutrient to the plant by converting atmospheric nitrogen into plant usable form. So actually rhizobium also gets shelter by the roots of certain plants such as peas, and peas also get nutrients from these plants. Other example is that of Mycorrhizae. Fungi and the roots of almost all vascular plants, that is the water plants, form mutualistic associations called as Mycorrhizae. In singular form we can call it as Mycorrhiza. What is actually present over here? What can you see in the image? Yes, this is Mycorrhiza, which is a mutualistic association between the fungi and roots of the water plants or the vascular plants. The fungus here gets its energy from the plant, and the plant acquires an efficient nutrient absorbing the mechanism. Which type of mechanism? That is the actively growing hyphae. Can you see here? Can you notice something? Can you observe here? This is actually hyphae. And what happens? What kind of mutualistic association happens over here? This is a hyphae. So the fungus gets its energy from the plant, and the plant acquires its nutrient by absorbing the mechanism, that is the actively growing hyphae. Now this actively growing hyphae will penetrate into the regions of the soil which is untrapped by the root hairs, and it will take up the nutrient, especially in the form of phosphate, which is increased afterwards when the hyphae will increase, or it will grow further when mycorrhizae are present. So in this way fungi gets benefited and roots of the water plants also get benefited. So there are two general types of mycorrhizae which are differentiated by whether the hyphae is living within the cells of the roots or it is remaining outside the cells of the roots of any vascular plant, and accordingly it is then termed. So this is also a type of mutualistic association, that is a type of symbiotic relationship. That means living together and benefiting. So this is also one such example which is clear to you. Now let us move on to other topic which is very interesting and which is very important to know, and that is replenishment of nutrients in the soil. Students, as you know that plants utilize the mineral nutrients, especially nitrogen, which is present in the soil for their growth. So plants will utilize this nitrogen which is present in the soil and it will grow. As a result, what will happen when it will utilize the mineral nutrients from the soil? There will be a depletion of nitrogen in the soil over a period of time. If the plants will utilize the mineral nutrients in the form of nitrogen in this way. And so the farmers use manure as they spread it in their fields. Why they spread or why they use manure? Because manure contains a lot of nitrogen apart from potassium and phosphorus, which is very much essential for the growth of a plant. So we have learned that plants absorb mineral nutrients from the soil for their growth and development. And even the farmer continue cultivating crops after year in their fields. So the amount of the nutrients gets on declining. And as a result, the yields of the crop also goes on decreasing. So you must have seen farmer applying manures, compost and fertilizer. Why do they add manures, compost and fertilizer? They use this because to enrich the fertility of the soil. And that is why this addition of manure and fertilizer helps the plant to grow. And these soil nutrients can be replenished by adopting some methods. But have we ever gave a thought that why do these replenishment of nutrients in the soil is required? Let us see. Why replenishment of soil is necessary? First of all, we should know that the ideal soil have sand, silt, clay and organic matter in about equal amounts. So it is also uniformly mixed to at least 12 inches deep. And then the subsoil allows the excess water to drain away. So basically, why this replenishment is necessary? The soil which have sand, silt, clay and organic matter is uniformly mixed, and that is why it allows the excess water to drain off. So basically no soil is ideal because it is full of nutrients. But soil can be improved with soil amendments and drainage. You must be knowing or you must have seen the barren lands. No land is barren from the initial time, from the beginning. What happens? That if the soil is fully nutritious, the plants will utilize it. But if we are not adding manure or compost, then what will happen? Yes, the fertility of the soil will decrease. And that is why we need to add something to the soil. We need to improve the soil. And we are improving the soil with soil amendments and drainage. Amendments means it is any type of material. For example, we can take here as a compost or manure, which is added to the soil to make it nutritious. So it will be full of nutrition. And that is why when we will grow crops, they will be able to utilize these nutrients from the soil and they will grow very quickly and very healthily. This replenishment of soil is necessary. Now, let us see that by which methods replenishment of soil can take place. Before moving to that topic, we will here discuss one example of the replenishment of the soil which takes place, and this is the same example which we discussed, that is the symbiotic one. The symbiotic association of rhizobium and leguminous plants such as pea is a natural way of replenishing the soil with nitrogen. So this is one such example of a symbiotic plant only, that is rhizobium and pea, which we discussed. It is the best example to explain the mechanism of replenishing the soil with nitrogen. Now let us see what methods can be applied. First of all, we should know that what is actually replenishment. Repeated growing of crops in the same soil year after year results in the depletion of the various nutrients of the soil or in the soil. And as a result, soil loses its fertility and requires replenishment. Means it needs to get nutrient by adding compost or manure, and that is why it is termed as replenishment. So the methods by which this replenishment of soil can take place is keeping the land fallow and crop rotation. Keeping land fallow means keeping the field free for a season to make up for the lost nutrients for a season, which is also called as the field fallow or the land fallow. And during this period, the soil regenerates its lost nutrients by the action of microorganisms which are present in the soil. And this makes the soil ready for the next crop rotation. This is termed as the land fallow. So if we will keep land fallow, the replenishment of soil will take place and the soil will not lose its fertility. The second method is the crop rotation. It is the process in which different types of crops are grown alternatively in the same field or soil. That means in a plot of soil which is untouched by human beings, the decaying growth from this year slowly breaks down into the basic soil nutrients over the next year. And over many years, this keeps the soil's fertility in constant, steady replenishment. That is the nature's way. If mankind steps in and takes over that soil, man can add naturally broken down organic matter himself and artificial fertilizers, which can boost the amount of the plant, most plant, that is the necessary nutrients. And that is why, because of getting nutrients, plants can grow or crops can grow in a very fine way, in a very healthy way. And that is why we can grow different types of crops in the same field, and that is why it is called as a crop rotation. There are also different other methods which are used by the farmers to maintain the fertility of the soil or replace the lost nutrients. So in order to maintain the soil fertility, there are certain rules which have to be observed or which have to be applied. So farmers have to take care about it. So this was all about replenishment of soil. Now we are done with this lesson, but let us have a look at one more interesting topic, that is the interesting facts about the soil. It takes more than 500 years to form 2 centimeters of topsoil, so we should take care of that. Soil stores around 10% of the emissions of carbon dioxide. 1 gram of soil contains 5,000 to 7,000 different species of bacteria. So basically, carbon dioxide is not good for human beings, but it is very much necessary for the plants. And as soil stores around 10% of the emissions of the carbon dioxide, that means it can be benefited for the plants. And the last one is the 75% of the earth's crust is composed of silica and oxygen like things, which actually benefits the plants or which actually benefits the soil. These are some of the interesting facts. I hope you must have enjoyed by knowing that. So I hope you enjoyed this session and learned about the heterotrophic mode of nutrition in detail and even the replenishment of nutrients in the soil. Right? So we will meet in the next session with a new lesson. Till then, keep learning, keep enjoying, save trees, and also save water and plant more trees. Okay? Thank you.